Okay, you ready?
Yes, I am.
Right then. You've only got 1 or 2 minutes, so don't
Okay.
worry if I stop you in the middle.
Okay, good.
Okay, please start talking.
Okay, how big would it be? My house it should be a middle size, shouldn't be too big because if I would live on my own, it's a lot to do with keeping up the cleaning. It should have nice big windows because I like to have the lights coming in. And what I would like is modern style. I would like to have less furniture, so I wouldn't pack it too much. And I would like to have it open, so the rooms can, they don't have too many doors. And yeah, and around the house I would like to have a big garden because for parties, barbecue, inviting my friends, and especially maybe if you decide to have a pet, then you can have the pet going outside of the house. And yep. And why it's my ideal house? I think it's always depending on the personality of someone else. So I think you always reflect your house, what you are inside. So that's why I would say like to have big windows because I'm open-minded. So I like to have people coming in and not going out. So that's what I would say.
Do you think you will ever have a house like that?
Don't think so.
Why not?
Because I like to travel, and it makes hard to have a house in an area where you think maybe you would move on again to a different area, and that's why you wouldn't always need to sell the house and look for a new house. So that's why I would say I would only have a nice flat, which is similar to a house sometimes of the size.
Okay. Right, I'd now like to move on to ask you some more questions generally related to the subject. And to begin with, I'd like to talk about where people live. Do people in your country prefer to rent or to own the place where they live?
We normally rent. If we have a flat, we rent it. Most houses can also be rented, but most of the time they are built by their owners and then they own it.
Okay. How has architecture changed in your country over the last 50 to 100 years?
I think we are looking at buildings and refurbishment of old buildings. So, for example, in Dresden, the Frauenkirche had been rebuilt. But on the other side, we're also looking at modern style. For example, we have areas where they were only supposed to have modern style, so flat houses and not the typical style we used to have. So I think areas are different. Some will always keep up with the same style and some will move on. And we have also old villas which are used for companies and for living in, and they are also rebuilt.
Okay. Does your country have restrictions on how people can change or construct buildings?
Yes, we do have. You have to go to an agency and to have permission. For example, if you want to have additional windows in the roof, you have to ask permission for that.
Okay. Do you agree with these things?
On both sides, yes and no, because if you like to have your old house rebuilt, then I think it's a nice thing to do because they used to have small windows and now you have to have light coming in, so maybe you want to refurbish it. But with old buildings which belong to the state, which are history, I think they should stay as they are.
Okay. Right, I'd like to move on to talk about buildings and tourism a little bit now. Do you think it's important for a country to preserve old houses and buildings?
Yes, because I think it's the identity of the state, of the country, and also it tells you something about the history, which I think is important for education as well of the pupils, of the students and adults, and for the adults, yeah.
Can you describe some of the famous buildings that are visited to your country or your town, your area, I should say?
I think castles are always interesting. In Germany, we have different cities with interesting castles and buildings. So, for example, the Brandenburger Tor in Berlin, the Frauenkirche in Dresden, Neuschwanstein in Bavaria. So I think we have a lot of different places you can go to as tourists.
Okay. Do you think that important buildings like that should be free of charge to visit, or that people should have to pay?
I think up to a certain age they should be free of charge, and then because it would help the teenagers to have them educated, and because sometimes they are quite expensive, and that's why the parents are not going inside because they can't afford that. So I think the younger pupils should go there.
Okay. Can you compare the importance of spending money on restoring a country's old buildings with things like spending money on education and health?
I think spending money on education and health is more important because it goes directly to a person, to the society, because if you don't have good health insurance or health system and education, then there's no sense for rebuilding old countries, because that wouldn't help to have the society growing and being a better way to live in. So I think on the one hand side, spending money on education is as important as it is when you spend it on old countries, but in general I would say spending on education is the most important fact.
Okay, thank you very much, Katrine. That's the end of this practice test.
Okay, thank you very much.